Now live, 100% live. Welcome.
What's up, everybody?
Let's see. We got a whole 0 people. Let's see.
That's
Holy
right.
moly, we have 2 viewers. Let's go.
What's up, 2 viewers?
There we go. We got it. I got it up on.
We got Todd. I know Todd. How you doing, buddy?
Todd Sefton.
I'm assuming Nick is on here.
I would assume so.
Josh Chitwood has joined. Thank you, Josh.
Yep. Hate that guy.
What's up, Curtis Seller?
So we'll let everybody get settled in here.
Yeah, man.
Before we do the cutesy introduction.
We'll give it till 8:03.
Ooh, a little 8:03 action.
All right. A little bit of 8:03.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
What's up, Brian? How you doing? YP, what's up, buddy?
Can you see who's joining?
Buddy. How does everybody feel about being called Buddy?
I think it's a badass name.
Do you guys like
Ryan
it?
Parker's
like, do people
here.
like it? Do you have an issue with being called Buddy?
We can make him the equalizer once we get this intro done and get all these people in here.
Ryan's still sick. Sorry to hear, Bub.
I'm also sick, brother. Something in that Kentucky air.
Yeah.
So
it was the lack of animals. There's no animals in Kentucky, and if there are animals, they do not cross the road.
Right. But we got a cool show.
In Kentucky, when asked why did the chicken cross the road, the answer is it didn't.
Never saw it. But yeah, cool show. We got Ryan Parker, the 2024 Kayak Adventure Series Angler of the Year, with 2 fat solo W's under his belt. Hell of a second place finish too at the Broodstock. We've got him joining in here shortly. Gonna see once we get to 8:03. Drew Gregory is already in the Instagram live with us. But once it is 8:03, we will get this thing rolling. We've got some interesting questions to ask Ryan Parker because this guy sees a river entirely different than I have ever thought of seeing a river, and I genuinely think that this is one of those guys that, like, when he talks about stuff, like, you should probably listen. It's it's very interesting stuff.
And the question of the night is, did Zach recover from Saturday night?
Oh, great.
We'll answer that right after this.
Imagine that. Yeah, we'll answer that. Yeah, all right. And we're going. Well, what a beautiful intro, huh?
Very nice. To answer your question, Brad, yeah, man, I actually, believe it or not, I wasn't that bad. That was just a shut-off valve that you witnessed. And that's for my protection and everybody else's.
Not a shut-off valve on your mouth, but hey.
Hey, man. I can't help it. Does everybody want to see my CPAP machine? Should I wear it?
All right, Bane. All right. So we've got Ryan here.
Hey, I wasn't the only one snoring, by the way. There was somebody else that woke me up.
No.
Somebody woke me up Saturday morning with their snoring.
Really? You actually woke up?
Yeah, and then I went back to bed because who cares?
All right. That's all fluff. We're 4 minutes into this thing. We're gonna bring Ryan into here and got a few questions for him. We want answers. This is probably gonna be like our first like genuine interview style live stream where it's like, you know, we as much information as he decides to give us, I'm going to take in.
Inquiring minds.
Inquiring minds.
Want
All
to
right,
know.
let's get Ryan in here. Ryan Parker, what's going on, man?
What's going on?
Oh, you're looking at it. Just BSing.
Dude, I feel like I've just saw you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Hey, weren't you like here the other day?
Yeah,
I was.
yeah. Long time no see.
Yeah. With a well-traveled kayak.
It's gonna travel a little more here soon.
That's funny.
It should get like mileage stamps or something.
Oh, dude, that thing's got some miles on it for sure.
Where's it been now? Like, we know it went from Pennsylvania to Kentucky to Ohio.
Pennsylvania to Ohio to Kentucky to Ohio is where it's been. It has also seen three different power plants, few grocery stores. Yeah.
Just driving around with it. Like a flat Stanley.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, dude. All right. So we got Ryan Parker here. He's off of an Angler of the Year victory, a solid second place finish on the we'll just call it Bowling Green, Kentucky, because it was a lot. It was Barron
Yes.
River Lake, Barron River, Drake's Creek, just the entire vicinity of Bowling Green, plus their version of like AEP, which is called PNW, which is ultimately where it was won at. But you had crazy numbers out of a river system that was, I mean, it was very, the water was fluctuating in turbidity. It was fluctuating in the flow. It was fluctuating in height. And, I understand it's a second place finish. It might not be the way you wanted to finish, but just the mixed bag that you had, the numbers that you had fishing this river was impressive enough to me. I guess like what I want to know, like throughout the amount of time that you had to pre-fish this, figure this place out, like how big of a curveball was that?
It was rolling with the punches. It really was. The section that I ultimately fished was the first time I saw it, I went down 2 weeks earlier. So like way ahead of all the rain that they got. And I had holes that I had like 8 foot of clarity in that river up there, which is, if anybody was there, like that's kind of mind blowing if you didn't see it before Helene rolled through. Because 8 foot of clarity is a lot different than what anybody else. I think 8 inches in some parts.
Maybe.
Yeah. So being part of my practice period, I wanted to get there that early. Like fall in general is just a transitional time. And in particular, smallmouth on tail races tend to migrate one of two directions, if not both. A lot of times it's both. They're headed towards, deeper winter holes. And then there's a population of them that head towards that tail race. Because at some point in the fall, that tail race releases cold water from the bottom of the dam, bottom of the reservoir, all summer long. They like it because it's cold then, but at some point that becomes warm water. So a bunch will migrate up those systems. And I knew that. So I wanted to see it ahead of time when it was super low and clear, because I'm like, I don't care if I catch these fish 2 weeks early, but I can see them all. I can run my boat into a laydown, see what comes out of it. I can, just slow motor and stand and just look. Yeah. And that particular stretch, like I think I put like half a day on it in like 2 weeks early, and I was just kind of motoring around. I think I caught like 86 inches or so, just sampling. And right. I was like, that's quality if I'm not trying. If I'm just sampling the water, I'm not trying that hard. I'm just trying to cover water and look and see stuff. So when you start hitting that like mid to upper 80s, when you're just burning through stuff,
Right.
there's something special about that.
Yeah.
And I saw in that one day, I did see one that I was like, that's a 20 for sure, like all day long. And so I knew the fish were, well, I knew the fish were there then, because 2 weeks, if they are very transitional and moving, migrating, you know, here one day, gone the next.
Right.
I fish below a lot of dam systems here in central Ohio. They're not tail races, but dam systems in the fall, particularly with lakes full of shad. We get it here, and Josh, I'm sure you know too, like when you get a hard fall rain and they dump a dam, it pours shad into the river system.
Yes, it does.
Big smallmouth wolf pack, and they go nuts on them. But they're also super nomadic.
Yes,
chasing all that bait around.
That's the thing. It's the nomadic. It's the nomadic. I guess like I don't know if nomadicism is even a word, but you understand what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
It's just how they are. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, fast too.
Yeah, and they're like smallmouths are built for one thing, and it's just moving like constantly. I think I heard like Seth Feider say like at like one point in time, you know, like he's like the only thing you can count on smallmouth for is that you can't count on them because they're never in the same spot. You know, they might be 100 yards, they might be, you know, 10 miles from where they were yesterday.
Right.
I've chased them in our, you know, in the Scioto River here. There's a section, you know, between one dam and another lowhead that like I have moved with a school of big smallmouth, like that whole 5 mile section in one day.
Yeah.
While they're just pushing the bait down the river and then back up, like a week later, they were all the way back up at the top. And but that kind of knowing those fish were there, and given that big influx of water. It kind of pauses them, right? Like when they get high water, they have to run to the bank. They're not moving up and down a system quite as quickly.
Right.
They'll wait for a little bit more stable conditions before they start moving. But this is just my experience with it. And, but because, so I was reading, I found like drawdown information well ahead of even going down there, and I was like, okay, they're not going to start drawdown until October 14th, so I don't have that predictability of releases to go off of, because that's usually a pretty controlled, you know, lowering of a lake. They're not going to just spew it all out at once,
right?
But with Helene and my just knowledge around here and dams in general is like, man, like they usually, once things kind of stabilize, water levels come down from the initial rain, you know, okay, now that lake level's maybe a couple feet above summer pool. They're getting ready for drawdown. They don't want it to be 2 feet above summer pool. They're not going to wait for that to kind of evaporate, get out of the system. They're going to start flushing it down.
Yeah.
And usually if they're, you know, kind of high recreation traffic rivers, they will kill that flow, you know, at some point Friday night. Like they'll just in anticipation for recreational traffic on a weekend. It's not always, but a lot of rivers will do that if they are allowed, you know, able to, I guess. You know, you just have flood control is one of the main purposes of these things, or right. You know, power generation, whatever. Like Michigan, that tail race, the Muskegon, that was, you know, power generation. And then, but, you know, tons of anglers and recreational paddlers and boaters and stuff get on that river on the weekend. So they kill the flow. They generate all their power during the week. The flow's really high. It puts fish in predictable places. But that one in particular, you know, they killed the flow. And it's like, okay, everything scatters. Like when they cut that flow, they're no longer concentrated in those areas. So my thought was, I'm going to fish this area and I have to be a certain distance from this dam to really capitalize on that higher water, that higher flow coming down. And that's why I looked at that particular area a few weeks ahead because I was like, man, if the fish are there, and we get, everybody knew Helene was coming at some point. To what degree we didn't really know till it got here, but kind of watching that, I was getting excited. I was like, man, like it could be really good up there. That high water is going to just keep those fish in these areas. It's going to, like, once it starts to stabilize a little bit, they'll start kind of feeding again. There'll be a lull, and if I get lucky, they'll bump that dam on Friday, and it's going to be what it was. Really, like it was exactly what I'd hoped.
I mean, if anybody caught the thumbnail for this live, Ryan clearly picked correctly because Josh and I were left holding bananas.
That is true.
And Ryan was holding some nice fish.
Yeah. He did not do too well at all. And you're right.
It was an interesting bite. It really was. I figured it out, I think, halfway through Wednesday. My team partner, Steve, and I, we decided, like, there's that huge chunk of the Barren that was like, I think it was like 18 miles between access points. It's not entirely true. There was another one in the middle, but it was borderline rock climbing. I did consider taking the second inflatable that I had, that's just bare bones, and backpacking it down that next day, because one of those like really prime areas is like right down there. And I ultimately decided against it after kind of following along. Just actually, Steve, I think, had checked social media and saw a couple people's posts, and I was like, oh, that's where we're supposed to go tomorrow. And I hadn't seen a soul all day where I was, and I was like, let's go back up here.
Yeah.
Because we know, like the prime areas are the prime areas. But when I found that bite, it was a really specific deal, and it was grinding the rocks with. I actually started figuring out with the crankbait, and then I just like, okay, well, I've seen enough gizzard shad in this system. Like, let me try the mag draft. Let me try bigger glides. Let me try stuff that's going to drive that bigger bite. And normally I'm fishing those at least up a little bit in the water column. Glides weren't getting anything, and finally I got bumped on the mag draft after I hit a rock. And I was like light bulb moment. Okay, I'm going to dig this thing in the bottom and see what happens. Like, let me dredge it like I was dredging those crankbaits. So I'd chuck it out, let it sink, and then just fish it like a square bill. Like, you could feel the mag draft just literally just deflecting off rocks. And all of a sudden it would just, you lost the bait.
Right.
And you just knew. And like a lot of them were T-boning it, like head first T-boning it. You'd watch your line move like 8 feet before you could even catch up and hit them. So it was like the bite you wanted. It was a lot slower in practice. And one thing that both Steve and I kind of observed is like, man, we are catching cold fish. Cold fish. Red lips.
Weird.
If anybody knows smallmouth in the winter, man, they won't lay flat. They like curl up, and they're like,
they curl.
And so I'm not for sure on this, but my theory is all that influx of water flushed the springs hard, and it flowed. It put a bunch of cold spring water in those rivers very quickly, and I think
the water was cold. It was surprisingly cold for how hot it was.
For when I was up there, a couple weeks prior, it was like 10 or like it felt like, I think the water was probably still close to like 80 degrees.
Right.
80, like low 80s 2 weeks prior to that. And I was like, this water's cold.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. I think that the water just like flushed those springs and shocked the heck out of those fish. But once I kind of figured that bite out Wednesday, I was like, well, let's take this other places on Thursday. And I put it in, hey, I know that book.
Zach's secret book.
I have that book. I took it to Drake's Creek. I took it to Bay's Fork. I took it to the Barren River above the lake, and the fish were all doing the same thing. And in the areas where I was finding these bites, the one big consistent thing was rock and springs were just they were all still flowing. There was always springs nearby. So I really, again, that's my theory that why those fish were so cold and finicky, especially during practice. They definitely woke up a little bit, but my Saturday did not go much like my Friday did. It was definitely, they killed that flow, and I anticipated that. But normally you don't have a pattern that completely flatlines on you. So I stuck with the big bait probably longer than I mean, it's easy to hindsight, like look back and say that, like,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I should have put that down way earlier than I did. But normally there's still some holdouts that are going to hit that thing. But no, that thing, like when it was done, it was done.
Really.
And I switched over to a little punch rig, little 3/8 punch rig.
That's the interesting one to me. I think that's badass.
It's just like it's a huge downshift from what I was doing. But it was that's the one cool thing about Kayak Adventure is like the team series thing. And that's partly why Steve and I decided like we need to fish together day 2 because things are shifting a lot, right? And so Steve and I share everything, but we don't throw the same stuff whenever we're doing this. Like when we need to figure out what's going on right now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you try a jig. What weight are you going with? All right, I'll do a punch rig and I'll go super finesse with it. You go, this. So we're throwing similar things, but we're playing with fall rate, trailers, action, all sorts of things. Like, oh, all right, you're going to put a 120 Chapo on. Let me put a 105 shower blow, right?
Right.
Vixen, something like, smaller, a little bit slower,
That's
so
how Zach and I fish.
Yeah, we just gauge it, right? And we can burn through a lot of baits, a lot of water. And ultimately we figured out like, oh, no, they're still on the exact same banks, but they're like, you got to milk them.
They're just a little slower to the draw.
Which is typical in falling water because not only did they kill that current, generation, but it's dropping at that point. When you're that close to the dam, you get those flows first, and when it drops first. Because I had all that flow coming down Friday. When I got back to the campground and looked at the Barren River gauge, like hours after it was coming my way, it hadn't even hit the Bowling Green gauge yet.
What were the water temps you were fishing there, Ryan?
I don't know for sure, but it was chilly. I want to say it went from, in 2 weeks, I feel like it dropped at least 10 degrees, if not more than that.
Right. That water on Drake's was cold.
It was like 65, maybe 70, dude.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I wanted to say that, like, I mean, 2 weeks prior, it felt like it was still in the low 80s. And it's a tail race, so it's not going to get that warm right below that dam. But it's still it was warm. It was like 2 weeks prior, it was like 92 degrees when I was on that spot the last time, and the water was warm. And then when I got on, I think Wednesday, I put in at Martinsville Ford, and I was like, when I stepped foot in that water, I was like, oh, damn, like this is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be getting real chilly everywhere. We got last night up here, we were in the 40s.
Yeah.
Here too.
Yep.
So,
hey,
did you notice that Kentucky sun's hot?
It is
overtly hot. I don't know why, but it just seemed hotter.
Pissed off
than other sun.
It's mad.
I don't know why, but it was hot.
No, dude, like we got out there and it might have been like 10. We were just kind of like moving back and forth, and I'm like, Jesus, dude, like, are you feeling this?
It's actually why I picked up the crankbait was that cold water though. I it's funny. I like my normal, like if I was on a lake, my normal cranking reel is usually like a 6.4. In the rivers, it's a little bit fast. I'll go like 7.1, 7.3 just to combat the current. But in the wintertime, I go to an 8.1. And I absolutely like burn pause. And it's, that quick burn pause. You don't want to burn pause. But it's super erratic and it's very reactive. And I was like, man, like if it's this cold, like let me try something I do in the wintertime to generate bites. And I do that on the rivers too. And sure enough, like the second I picked it up, I think I was 3 casts into it and I had a 17. I was like, okay.
On any of these kayak adventure series tournaments that you fished, did you ever pick still water over current?
No,
Why?
I'm a river rat.
Okay.
It's not that I can't fish lakes. I actually grew up on Indian Lake here in Ohio, which is a canal system lake. Dug for the Erie Canal back in the day. 6 foot deep for the most part. If you're not familiar, I think there's a hole that's about 12 feet deep, but it's not very big. It's where the original swamp used to be before they dug it all out. But yeah, it's a 6 foot deep mud puddle. Well, it's not mud. It's not like the grass cleared it all up. The zebra mussels in the grass cleared it all up, but it was yeah. So I'm no stranger to it. But even that particular lake, I think I was telling creek crawler Brian Slayton about this. I was like, I learned a lot about fishing current on that lake because of how those canals operate. Certain canals on that lake, like which ones don't have any life in them because they don't even have a ditch coming in. There's no nutrient inflow. Certain ones only get they get really giving away some juice for Ohio guys. Certain canals, you want to look for the ones that wind funnels down them from one given day to another. Like fish will move from one canal to another because wind is going down this one, and they love it. It's just the wind pushes. Because the main part of the lake is a big open expanse, and this is in the flats of Western Ohio. So whenever the wind always blows, and whatever direction it comes from, it only funnels up certain canals, and feeding fish set up in those canals, the ones with the wind funneling through it. I realize this all now, much later than when I was fishing it as a kid. But I was like, man, I never get bit unless it sucks the cast, into this wind. But it's like, I think back on that, I'm like, it's because the wind was generating current and pushing food to fish.
Yeah, I always have a better time on my home lake whenever the wind is whipping. Almost always. Either the wind's got to be whipping or the rain. Or like a very light rain or something. Something's got to be disturbing the surface.
It's a big difference maker. Clarity is another thing, and that's part of what the wind and rain is. It's breaking up the surface, but yeah, like clarity where I had it in the river was that perfect, about 1.5 foot. Friday it cleared up to almost 2 feet, I think, on Saturday. But to me, that is prime spinnerbait water. Bigger boot tails. I actually dropped down to wherever it is, a brownie colored bag draft, which is something I use in less muddy water. It was on the edge. I could have gone to the white albino, but I was like, man, it's been dirtier. So I was like, I'm just gonna I'm gonna shift my color a little bit and see what happens. And maybe that was the right move. I never even really tried the white one.
I saw what color you were throwing, and I was like, that is a crazy interesting choice. Yeah. I used to buy that one, and I would throw.
And it's not completely opaque or anything.
No, but it's enough for a presence. It's enough for if you think about what a shad actually looks like in that water, it's probably somewhat similar.
Yep.
And I'd always take a chartreuse marker and just run a line down the side where the dark meets the light. Just something for them to look at.
Yeah.
I'm big on using markers. I'm like a 6-year-old.
Let's say if there's anything I ever keep in my boat, like in particular for smallmouth, like it's always a chartreuse, like the old Zoom garlic pen.
Yep.
Yep.
Got a handful.
You know,
I got a question for you,
I
Ryan.
don't know. It pops it. It makes it glow, and it. I remember forever ago, like I used to fly fish quite a bit, and I remember kind of getting into bass, like smallmouth on the fly, and I went into Mad River Outfitters, and like I think Andy, the manager of the shop, then he was like, "Well, if there's one thing smallmouth like, he's like chartreuse, chartreuse, chartreuse. I don't know what it is, but they will eat it." I was like, cool.
So yeah, I got a question for you, Ryan. So in my very early days of bass fishing, I fished a creek that ran into the Allegheny called Pine Creek, and I fished like the first 2 miles of it from the Allegheny. I just wading, and I would do pretty good there. Some days better than others, but most days I'd at least catch a couple like 2-pounders. Pretty cool. Hurricane Ivan came in what was that, 2004? And I fished it maybe 10 times after that. Never caught a fish. In your experience, when you get a major flood occurrence like that, what happens? What happens? I know fish aren't necessarily washed out.
No.
But what happens? How long? The water may recover faster than the fish actually recover. I'm just curious. I literally that was the most experience I had with current up until this year.
Okay.
And I started fishing rivers again this year. Other than that, I've just been fishing still water, mostly lakes.
Gotcha. My thoughts on that. The ends of rivers, creeks, whatever they may be, they tend to widen out, right? And so that's where you're going to have a lot more sediment that falls out. In high water, I think one thing may have happened where, if you have a lot of wood that settles, because it usually widens out, slows down a little bit, you have things that just settle in that last couple miles of a creek or tributary or a river or whatever it might be. In big, huge flushes like that, it can move habitat. So if they're living in wood, talk to Dustin Hoy. I think Jeff Little and Hans both observed / heard rocks moving on the Susquehanna during that one.
That's crazy.
Like boulders moving down through some of those channels. So I think in those really high spike influxes, you can have habitat that just it's gone. So that's obviously the fish aren't going to live there if they just don't have what they need anymore. I think the other thing is, as those things come down, that sediment is going to fall out. Most of that's making it into a river from like a tributary creek, especially like Eastern PA, has a lot more gradient. A lot of that's going to end up in the river, but where sediment does fall out, it's falling in that last couple miles probably of the creek, and it may just kind of squash the nutrients, or I think it's more maybe a big shift in habitat. But that's my thought on it.
So in your experience though, obviously I know you can catch them as long as you can safely be on the river. There's a possibility for you to catch them if you know where to look. But in your experience, how long does it take after a major flood like that for the fish to return to their day-to-day, their normal day-to-day? I mean, is it like instantaneously, like as soon as the water is good, the fish are good?
I think a lot of times they will eat in like stuff I wouldn't even launch.
I know they eat when it's coming up. I know they eat when it's coming up.
It's think about it. I think they eat like that. One, because it's positioning the bait so easily for them to eat, but I think they also just know, living in this, like this is their home, so they know, like, all right, I gotta pack on some weight real fast because I'm gonna be sitting for about 3 days,
right?
Where it's just really hard to find something. because it's not like, you know, if you think back, like if you get a half an inch of rain, it doesn't trigger that rise speed, right? Like you gotta have, nor does like a really sharp spike, because they're like, okay, get to high ground, like I've got to save myself at this point, like. But if you have that good steady rise, they start eating. You know, but I think that after a rise, there's going to be that initial fall. They will eat. They do calm down. Again, I kind of experienced that in a very sharp way from that Friday to Saturday. Like I had the rise gorging fish, and then done. Like the complete polar opposite Saturday. And obviously they would still eat. I just didn't shift fast enough. But it's that slower thing, you know, and I think take like on a lake, you have that really on fire bite right as a front's moving in, and then it comes through and it's tough. Part of it, I think, is that they've just eaten so much that they're just like, okay, I'm full. I don't have room for cake. I don't have room for cake anymore. So you give them an after dinner mint. You know,
I know when you have a high pressure system come in after a low pressure system, that high pressure, that air pressure, is actually creating pressure on the water, which does actually make them not hungry. It makes them just like in a funk.
Yeah,
because it's actually making pressure on the water.
I mean, I know, I think like what biologists say, like, oh, we can't tell if pressure, you know, affects fish. And I'm like, they literally have an organ in their bodies.
Yeah.
What are you talking? Yeah, like,
right, like,
dude, I will watch
they
pressure
can
spikes
adjust their own pressure to rise and lower in the water column. Like, I think that like they can sense these things.
Ohio's a big pressure, like pressure plays in huge in Ohio.
I'll be honest, I never look at it because I have the day that I have to fish.
Yep.
You know, that's so I'm
you and me both, buddy. That's the day I got. That's what I'm doing.
I get it. It makes sense to me why pressure would affect them. To be honest, I never look at it.
You still have to catch them. Yeah.
And I still have to figure them out every single day, every time I go out, sometimes from hour to hour, you know,
now,
like
I've been fishing this particular body of water for long enough. I actually do look at the pressure because it kind of gives me a little bit of an idea of where to start.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed it does move them.
Yeah.
Or at least sometimes not maybe move them, but I at least know what to start with as far as like what I'm throwing or how to present.
So that's that, you know, like the sampling principle for me, or the idea of it is like, even if it's, you know, I could be throwing the complete wrong bait, but as long as I can move fast and throw it,
oh man,
the thing is, like, you can
averages.
If something ends up biting it and it's a really tough bite day, it's because there were a ton of fish there and it ate it at a competition. And those are good, you know, like that's the spot I want, because if I don't want to hunt and peck for one or two, I'd rather sift through 20 of them right here.
Play the numbers game.
You know, and you can tell pretty quick, because if you catch one like that, you turn around and say, is another one going to eat this? And if they don't, you know, after a dozen casts or so, there's definitely more there. But now you know, okay, I gotta downshift maybe. I gotta try something else, maybe finesse them a little bit, or at least maybe change my approach to it. They might still hit moving baits, but what I think Jeff Little calls it the progression of aggression.
The progression of aggression.
Man,
he's got lots of good little sayings like that.
Yeah, I love that terminology, like the progression of aggression. And, you know, his point is you start with the most aggressive stuff, because if you can catch them on it, why throw anything slow?
Right.
You're gonna go through way more fish. If they're eating it, you have a higher, you know, you're playing numbers at that point. Like you just have higher odds of putting it in front of the right fish.
A lot of times it's the water and the conditions kind of do a little bit of that elimination for you. Like,
yeah,
there's some places where you can't throw an open hook. Josh and I mean, we were fishing the upper Allegheny, I don't know, a month ago or something. And
We were there.
The eelgrass is starting to let loose.
Yeah.
Well, more than started to. The eelgrass was letting loose.
Floating down.
And it was everywhere,
Yeah.
dude. And you kind of that kind of dictated like some of what you couldn't throw. It kind of eliminates it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Even with a little finesse buzzbait, I was having trouble avoiding that crap, not picking it up on every cast, which eliminates your efficiency.
That is true.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're picking grass off more than you're casting, it's what did the buzzbaits, have you guys ever bent the wires so you and essentially like straight shank Texas rigged a trailer on them?
I've
to combat that grass a little bit.
I've
if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I get you. You bend it down so that like a flipping hook
a little bit, so your trailer still runs flat in line,
like a flipping hook
with the wire. But yeah. Hook your stuff.
I actually have not done that. I will have to try that.
Try that because we're getting into the time of year where that grass, I think, as you said, like it's coming down the river.
I'll tell you what, if it's been letting loose for a month like that on the upper Allegheny, I don't know how there's any left. So
dude,
it might be over.
Fair.
Dude, it was like I just started. I like to cover water first and foremost. Like I've got a spinner bait, a bladed jig, a Texas rig swim bait, something that I can burn. And like I just got to the point at the upper Allegheny because I was just kind of having fun with it. I was like, oh, I want to throw this and I want to throw this and I want to throw this. And every cast, like I was throwing a wake bait and I was trying to throw a jerk bait and it's just coming back. And I'm like, dude, screw it. I'm going to throw on this Texas rig. And when it gets caught up in the weeds, I'm going to snap it and break those weeds loose and hope for a reaction strike.
You see, we're like, we don't have the like the wild celery grass type stuff around Ohio, but what we do have is like every creek and river is surrounded by hardwood deciduous forest that just get dumped with leaves. So that's how I figured that buzzbait thing out. When they get sitting thick, like bend it down so your trailer runs straight, and you just kind of gets your hook under them a little bit, but it gets hidden up in that plastic. And I usually go to like, something skinnier, like a fluke style bait on a buzzbait then anyway. And that way you get the hook slot. So there's not much for the fish to, get through to when they actually bite it.
That's a neat tip, dude.
Oh.
Yeah. I actually caught fish in pockets at Hoover, a few years ago. They were busting in those leaves, and I was like trying to pick it apart with the Senko. I couldn't get the Senko to go down. I was trying to throw like anything. I just started throwing a frog. I just started throwing a popping frog, and they were just smoking it through the leaves. So
I've had that day. I've had that day a couple times. I've had it on the I'm taking Christine's thing and I'm punching leaves this year. I was like, why haven't I never thought to do that? Like,
right.
I'll fish jerk baits out around the edges. Like I know they're underneath there, but I'm like, why have I never just why have I not brought a flipping stick and done that? Like it grew up flipping pads and junk on a lake. So
on a lake, huh?
What is Christine's thing?
When she was up north, flipping for all the ripping up grass, like it would get matted up on laydowns and stuff. She was like flipping like a 1 1/4 ounce, 2 ounce weight, like somewhere there, but like north of an ounce, I think, like 4 big smallmouth through these big mats of the eelgrass, wild celery, whatever it is.
Just a big ass tungsten weight, just missiling through everything,
just bombing through it.
That's cool, man. I sometimes I'm pretty sure that whole law of averages things. The more times you throw, the more fish you're gonna catch is half the battle.
Sometimes I think smallmouths have been maybe not a misconception, but like when you think about it, you think of the Great Lakes, you think of like lighter line applications, really clear water, stuff like that. I think traditionally most people were chasing them on pretty like light, medium light spinning rods with light, small stuff. And so there's that whole idea that surrounds smallmouth fishing, like, oh, you can't throw big stuff for them.
That's so
You
dumb.
can't throw heavy line. Like, no,
Okay.
they're so aggressive.
So I gotta say, early 2022, I think, I was on the Black River, comes out of Erie, up north in Ohio. I was probably in the first, I don't know, 20 miles of it or whatever. And I was just bank fishing, and I was throwing a Texas rig tube, and I was getting bites like crazy. But no, I lost every single one of them. And then I switched
tricky.
And then I switched to a tube jig, with the I don't know, probably like a 3/16 quarter-ounce head and just the open hook. That was it. I caught every one of them the bit. So since then, I've been real when I'm fishing for smallmouth. If I'm like, I don't want to throw a Texas rig. But
no,
I just saw Josh doing it not too long ago, catching him, and I'm like, whoa, how about that?
One of my favorite ways to throw a tube in the rivers is on a belly-weighted swim bait hook, Texas rigged.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I work it more or less like a fluke, or I'll even swim them.
Yep.
But just when you need to get like in the junk, and this one thing I do like tube bait.
A tube is a soft plastic jig. Like
it looks like everything and nothing too. Like it just.
Yep.
It's the most underrated bait.
Yep. People quit throwing them. I started throwing them a lot more again. I used to throw them all the time, and I've even played around with some stuff that were. I'm not going to talk about it yet, but
that was my first favorite.
But there's some good stuff plastic about them. Me too. Me too.
What brand? What brand?
Honestly, the softer the better. My last real favorite tube was the old, before Cabela's got bought by Bass Pro, the Jeff Crete Cabela's Pro tubes. They would last one fish. They were so soft.
I was a sucker for the Gets It.
Yeah. I still fish the coffee tubes.
Yep.
It's a bummer to hear about Venom because I would fish.
They made some good tubes.
Fished a lot of Venom.
You ever hear of Dry Creek Outfitters?
Yes, they have.
They make a good double dip.
They make a beautiful tube, dude.
Cool.
Really nice.
Good to know. Like like hats off to Dustin and those guys for the Carns for doing what they did for as long as they have, and it's a bummer to see them go.
Yeah, it's tough to compete them.
I know. It's like it's weird. Like as a kid growing up around Indian Lake, like I have seen the Venom snakehead like my whole life. So it's going to be weird to like not see that on shelves everywhere anymore. Stock up while you can, everybody. Like seriously, it's good stuff. But tubes are they're an underrated a lot of things baits. They're an underrated trailer. They're an underrated jig trailer, swimmer bait trailer, like swim jig trailer. They're a very underrated bait, and it does a lot. I spent a lot of time over this past winter and the winter before just downsizing. Like I have if you're familiar with Lakewood Tackle, they have the money bag. Or not the money bag. The money bag's the big mesh bag, the billfold. They're little plastic mesh container. And I was like, if it doesn't go in here, I don't want it. Like, that's too much.
Yep.
So it's like, I've got my fluke style baits in one thing, just my creature bait kind of trailers that I fish in another. And then I think it's like worms and tubes. That's it. That's all I have in there. So if you want to know how
you
much
mess around with finesse jigs at all?
Yes. Yeah. I tend to like I like football heads, just river stuff, rocks. But but yeah, with I mean, in particular, like I work with Fireball Jigs, Fireball Outdoor Products here in Ohio. That's you know, Joe's receptive to kind of what his team feeds him and stuff. So he does his finesse footballs are you know, he gives you the option of a 3 or 4/0 finesse hook on those jigs, which is cool because you can upsize a finesse profile, like upsize a finesse jig profile if the fish are like kind of, if they're aggressive, but they're like, it's that bite where you never feel it, and all of a sudden, you know,
so you're making it more about the trailer than you are the jig.
Yeah,
Yes,
the jig is just a vehicle.
Yes.
Yeah. And I fish them. I fish a lot of them, like in the rivers anymore. I fish a lot of football jigs, like dark sleepers. Like I just steady retrieve down on the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, and oftentimes a lot of I like to just trailer those with. I usually cut down the Z-Man bang sticks to an appropriate size, kind of roughly around the suckers and stuff that I'm seeing. I'll usually go a little bit bigger than the suckers I'm seeing. But even on those finesse jigs, Joe asked me a long time ago, he's like, should I leave these skirts like more full than most people? I was like, yeah, you can always take away material, but you can't add it. So I would leave it there. You know, if you know, you can thin that out. You can just pull it.
If you know.
Cut it, whatever. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So
in my experience, especially for people that are new, what you give them is almost like it's like you're giving them a rule or a law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you give them one that's full, they're like, this is what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And that's
mess
it.
with it. I tell people all the time, I used to buy 5-inch Cincos because the profile's different. And I would cut 1/2 inch off. I would just cut a 1/2 inch off and I'd fish a Texas rig. And people would be like, well, why don't you just buy 4-inch? And I'm like, because it's an entirely different bait. It's skinnier. It sinks faster.
I tend to lean towards the Berkeley Generals, but I buy the 5-inch and I do the exact same thing.
Yeah. It's just.
Yeah. If I don't want a 5-inch, I cut a 1/2 inch off, and that's it.
I think it was either this May or last May, and I was up with Josh in Columbus fishing Pond X, and with a shaky head, and a couple times I would get bit and I'd catch the fish, but it would take a bit of the shake. It would take a bit of the tail off, and I kept replacing it. And finally, I was getting close to running out. I was like, "Whatever." I just kept throwing it, and as long as there was a piece of plastic on that hook, they were still biting it.
Yeah,
it was very interesting.
And that'll happen. They're weirdos, man. You can't. Half the time, if they see something going by their face like that, they're like, "What? What the? Why? Why'd that happen?" You make another cast, so you do it again, and they just grab it out of, instinct, or, why is this in my face? Why is this here? I don't have hands, so I'm just going to use my mouth or my head.
Yep.
So, hey, Ryan, while we got you on here, just a few other questions. So, and forgive me, I'm not familiar, but do you fish any other trails, or are you planning to fish any other trails?
I actually I took all last year off from just everything and just like got back to my roots of, throw and go, just creek river fishing, taking my kid out a bunch.
Nice.
And then, I heard about Drew's brainchild with the adventure series, and I was like, yes, that's what I want. That's what I want to do, because that's how I fish.
Yeah, nice.
I've fished some of the Bassmaster kayak stuff. I fished some of the Hobie BOSs. I was fishing the BKFT, which is now Ohio Kayak Fishing stuff, and then I do fish like a local Wednesday nighter if I can make myself available. The Central Ohio League and that's just a bunch of buddies that, a little 4-hour deal, which. Like that alone, the 4-hour deal, I can't say enough about it. It doesn't seem like much, But when you consistently push yourself, even on lakes, local stuff like that, we'd rotate between 3 lakes, but that 4-hour window to figure out fish in 4 hours,
Sense of urgency.
It pushes you to get really good at figuring them out quickly.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
And and so I always love fishing it, mostly because it's low pressure. It's the $25 just cash entry. We just keep it simple, and it's more about the camaraderie than anything. But it does push you as an angler to just get better at figuring them out very quickly. And it actually led me to that, like, simplify everything. Because if I've got the same 4 rods, I've got my handful of baits for the progression of aggression, right? Like in 4 hours, I should be able to generate. We do a 3 fish limit there, so like I should be able to generate 3 bites in 4 hours, right? If I'm diligent about my time.
George, never wintergreen, always cool mint. Don't be a savage. If you want wintergreen, chew Copenhagen or something. Sorry, I was just answering a comment.
No worries. As far as next year goes, I'm gonna stick with some of the kayak adventure series trail stuff if time allows. I'm in a bit of a life shift, so I'm kind of working my way into a new career, and I know that next year may be very full with that.
Which one are you most excited about?
St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Nice.
Like hands down, if there was, second is Oil City. Like,
yeah,
Eastern PA is like right below that. But like for me, like St. Cloud, just being a river smallmouth guy and knowing the potential, like I expect to see at least five bags over 100 inches in St. Cloud. At least 5.
That's awesome.
I think it's going to put up. It's going to be one of those tournaments. I feel like it's going to be like where like what was that one? I think it was like a BOS or Bassmaster, where like the first 45 anglers, like first 45 places, all had 90 inches or more. Like,
that's crazy.
I think St. Cloud's going to one of those types of places.
Yeah, I would have to say, I'm the 2 I'm gunning for to try to go to. One I'm definitely going to. I'm probably gonna fish. Would be obviously here in PA.
You're allowed.
But that St. Cloud, yeah, I was really upset about missing Wisconsin this year. So
it was a cool river.
I'd like to get up.
Yeah, that was my worst finish of the whole series. Was Wisconsin, and the tournament that I had was a little interesting up there. So I was actually like patting myself on the back for having not really practiced the main river, to abandon ship on what just wasn't working for me and go out there and figure it out. And like I had it dialed. I just ran out of time.
Well,
I never quite found the right fish.
You moving like that is, I'm sure that helped to secure your AOY.
That was one that just got bumped because the way they do it, they take
really?
They take your
get
best like of the first 5 events and then broodstock. So
gotcha.
It can get really interesting because you're like, man, like these other ones, like I didn't have I think I had like a 20th, a 17th, and a 24th. Like I was always above top 25, for the others. So like I still had a pretty decent season overall, but with that, it's like, oh well, Lance had a pretty good he had a really good finish in Georgia. He had a pretty good finish in Missouri, and
man, I was bummed about missing Georgia. I really wanted to catch a shoaly bass.
I thought that I wasn't going to make it, and literally last minute, I had already written it off, and I mentioned it. My wife she's awesome, and she was like, "Well, why aren't you going?" And I was like, "Well, like I have to leave tomorrow to like go down and do this thing." She's like, "Well, then go. If you want to go, go." I was like, I feel like this is the trap, but this is okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm looking over my shoulder.
But no, she's always been super supportive of it, and she also knows like you're grumpy, go fishing.
Yeah.
This is your happy place. Go do this thing.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, we're getting to our wrap up time. Yeah, we're at an hour.
Cool.
We turn into pumpkins after an hour.
Me too. Me too.
So I have one final question for the rest of the people that are watching. If I were to get into river or creek fishing right now, what is like your number one, just if you could only give me one tip, like what would it be?
Man, that's a tough one.
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
Just one.
If you're just getting into it, throw straight braid.
Look at that.
That's my tip. Because in current, you're like one thinner diameter, heavier line, and the feel.
You're cutting.
If you're you're cutting through it. Current takes your line a lot more than you think it does, and you don't feel a lot of bites that happen. Fishing current, they have so much drifting by them. I don't think that the line matters, even in clear water. Like I've caught 20-inch smallmouth in crystal clear water on straight 30-pound braid.
Cool.
I don't know how much like color matters to them. I personally don't throw like the lime green and high vis yellow stuff, but
only on
stick with
spinning
like
gear.
moss green and black. Keep the high vis stuff for spinning gear with the leader. But yeah, if you're just getting into it, you just feel so much more, and that's important.
As somebody who is just getting into it, I actually have a tip too. And I learned it on the Shenandoah River doing a wet wade with help me out, Josh.
TJ
from Live Rough Die Tough. We were fishing the Shenandoah, and the water was fast everywhere. There was no slow water. It was just fast everywhere. And my tip is don't be afraid of fast water, because they're there.
Yep.
Especially in the summer when it's hot.
White water is cover.
Yeah. Yeah, I was amazed. I always kind of looked for still water runs deep. And so I always kind of looked for that whenever I was fishing water, when I was fishing current. But I was watching what they were doing and started fishing that fast stuff. And I was amazed at, first of all, you can't go faster than that fish.
Nope.
You can't.
Nope.
Especially in the rivers.
No.
They're Ferraris.
And they are in there, like any little piece of structure, whatever, sitting in that current gives them just enough to hang out and be there and smoke whatever comes by.
My final tip is similar to Zach's: start fast, slow down later, cover water.
Yep.
Dial in a speed pattern if you can at all costs, and catch as much fish and cover as much water as you can. You'll find big fish. Not playing the numbers game. Always
But
playing the numbers game.
hell yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you coming on, man. We may call on you in the future, dude. You're a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. And I got to put an order in here for some of those. It's buzzbait season, and I'm getting low, so I need some head
We got
knockers.
some.
We got some.
Yeah, we got some.
I saw them. I know. If I think somebody mentioned them like in Missouri, like the Crocagator head knocker buzzbaits, like they're. The time is now.
Yeah, they're good. Those things are obnoxiously loud.
Yep.
We also carry the Brazalo Bushwhacker.
And the
both of those
and
both
the
of
Weed
those
Whacker.
have closed R-bends or closed eye like line ties. It's awesome for smallmouth because smallmouth will rip wires otherwise.
Right.
Yep.
This will still get chewed up. Like It's got a great wire keeper on it. So, like,
Yep.
look, I know a lot of people are Z-Man guys. I'm not a Z-Man guy, but this is definitely a bait that, you know, a Z-Man's going to prosper on. Yeah, it'll cooperate.
Yep.
I prefer throwing like something softer. Like with stuff like this, dude, I throw swim baits. So like I'm a Bitters Naked Swimmer guy. Or the we had a guy 412 tackle. He makes a very interesting toad with some kickers on it. This is just the Crockett Gator toad because it's got that little hole in it to pre-rig the bait. But I just prefer the action over this. Like this is a fine trailer, but I prefer like just something. I want to move, man. I want to cover stuff. I want to make a loud noise and get a really mean strike. And that's just, it's just a preference.
That's my preferred either the billy goat or tubes. We talked about tubes being versatile. I love a tube on a buzzbait.
Oh.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks again.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
See you, Ryan. All right. That was
Ryan Parker.
Ryan Parker, the Angler of the Year.
Yeah, for Kayak Adventure Series. Hell yeah,
Yes.
dude.
So,
Kayak Adventure Series is got some amazing destinations
it
in
was great.
2025. They had a lot of great places in 2024, but they've got a lot of amazing places coming up in 2025. I don't know if anybody heard or not, but they are coming to Northwest Pennsylvania. But they're also going to Texas
And
to
Florida.
like F1 Mecca.
Is it F1 or is it F5? I thought it was
I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, the ponds by my work, they have Florida strain bass, like, and you can tell too, because they're just freaks. Like they're like this long, but they're like this tall. Like they just have these like, I don't know, like people might call it. They're not northern strain, bro. They're not. Like they have like weird patterns on their sides, like those Florida bass have. Like they're nutty. They're strange fish, and they're mean, dude. Like.
So maybe they're a cross?
No, they are straight up purebred Florida strain bass.
That's crazy.
They were stocked. And that's like I talked to the guy who like he did the whole engineering of the site. You know, this is the reason why the pond is there, and I decided to throw Florida strain bass in it. But some news. We've got some news. So I've got a handful of.
Oh yeah, for all of you that read the description, how do you get a free crankbait from Dark Horse Tackle? And not just any free crankbait.
You just have to spend $50 on the website. And I've got a handful of cornerstone baits right here. We've got 2.5s in a few colors. We've got 1.5s, and we've got this really nice lipless. Honestly, I'm going to pull this out. I actually didn't find this until you were like, hey, wasn't there something else in there? And I was like, let me dig some more. And they were underneath some dabble packs. So I grabbed one actually for the river this past weekend, but there was no way in heck I was throwing something like this, dude. It was just something crazy. But this is a really nice, like brown bone with a
it's gorgeous
contrasty
color. Great action. Owner hooks.
Yep.
Owner hyperwire split rings on there.
Yep, it's outfitted, man. It's ready for battle.
Yeah, it is a beautiful crankbait. That's a beautiful lipless. There's beautiful crankbaits.
Yeah, we got this one called Gold Flash.
While supplies last, this is going to start October. It's going to start October 15th. That's
October
a
15th?
Tuesday. October 15th is when this promotion is going to start.
We will have a bait drop on October 15th as well. So keep a lookout for a bait drop from your September Dark Horse.
Actually,
box. And
that bait drop is going to happen on the 22nd.
The September bait drop or the October?
The October bait drop.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That works for me.
So September is going to be the 15th.
Yeah.
And then October is going to be the 22nd. We're catching up, folks. For any subscribers listening, I know we were a little bit behind on August and September. Josh and I both got absolutely hammered with work, basically.
Dude.
I mean hammered. And but we learned a lot. that new situation, and we made some adjustments so that that's not a problem going forward. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, and we appreciate
your
all
patience
of
as
you
always.
guys.
I mean,
Yeah, our subscribers are badass. Absolutely, Pete. You absolutely do.
Yep.
Oh, you know what?
Speaking of Pete,
how about a sneak peek? How about a sneak peek?
Nice.
A sneak peek. How about a sneak peek?
Gosh dang it.
Look, which color, buddy? I only want to show one color.
Fluffer Nutter Glide.
Oh, I don't. Hold on. He wrote it on the bags.
Fluffer Nutter is the bone, sexy shad looking deal.
I like them all, but for the titles, I like Afternoon Delight. Gonna find my baby, gonna hold her tight.
So this glide bait that Zach's about to hold up right there, that is responsible for my first double up. I have hooked a bunch of double ups. I have never successfully landed a double up. And
I have yet to put hooks on it. I will be doing that as soon as this ends tonight.
Size 6 vectors, by the way.
Yes.
And it weights. This bait on the stop has a shimmy. Just like that. And so does the other bait.
This is an idiot-proof glide.
Yeah. Cast and reel.
No, please don't anybody take offense to that terminology, but literally, if you are new to glide baits,
this is the one.
You can use this one. You can use it on conventional tackle. And
I actually made a video saying exactly what you're saying right now.
Yeah. Like you can use it on conventional tackle. You can straight retrieve it.
Yeah.
You can chop it. This bait chops like crazy for all you glide bait guys.
Yep. You can adjust the depth real well on the chop. You know, rod tip down will get it to dig a little bit. Rod tip up will get it to. I like rod tip up because if you're reeling this thing with your rod tip up and you're just getting the tail to come up and you just give it a couple taps with the rod tip up, it really looks like a dying bait fish. How it just kind of
just doing weird stuff.
It just pathetically comes up to the top and just makes a little weird turn.
Help me.
Exactly. That's exactly.
But yeah, so I know this light isn't doing the best. But
we
gorgeous color,
it looks good.
Gorgeous color. And then we also have we'll go for
the side stepper.
So this whoa. We actually have 2 small businesses involved in this bait. 3 technically. But we've got the side stepper.
Thing is glowing.
The treble was hand tied by Wager Baits. The guy did a fantastic job.
He did.
Really did a good job matching the colors. And then you have Stone Man Pete, who did an amazing job.
The work speaks for itself on that one.
On painting these baits.
Right.
Very gorgeous. I'm just letting you know right now, the light at which I'm giving them to you does not do it justice. There's a lot of details in here that you may not be able to see, but this thing is going to allow you to do some crazy stuff while you're fishing. This is like an underwater spook is basically what it is.
Yep. And
this is a subsurface spook.
I would recommend, unless if this is a bait that you're new to, I would recommend trying to get as much action out of it as possible, meaning we are giving you a split ring as an option. The split ring allows...
You will find this in the pack?
Yep. The split ring allows for a more side-to-side, almost like a hoop knot. Now, if you're a hoop knot tire, I would go straight line tie, and if you want, you see the action itself as far as being erratic, that's where your split ring comes in. The action is still... very it's such a reaction strike bait. Like it's just no matter how you fish it, if you just pop it, it's gonna give you action. And
just in case you were thinking it, by the way, that I just didn't want to put the split ring on. It was more of a pain in the butt to put that split ring in a bag and get it in there.
Yes, it is.
Than it was just to put it on the bait. But I wanted you guys to have an option because you can fish it straight to the bait.
I was fishing it
bait.
straight to the bait yesterday, and I have fished it with a line tie before, and I noticed a difference. You know, there is less.
All you snap guys out there, this is for you.
It's a good snap.
Throw a
bait.
snap on it.
Yep. It does a nice one of these when without a line tie. A nice diagonal, not a walk, not a chop, just a nice like jerk darting diagonal motion, but it doesn't like the nose doesn't shift like it would with a split ring. The nose just kind of, it's like however you're twitching it, it kind of just goes. But
it catches a lot less water than that glide does.
Yes, it does. You can fish that bait super fast.
Yes, you can fish the side stepper a lot faster. You can also, I personally believe and have seen that you can fish it a lot, not maybe not a lot, but you can definitely fish it deeper.
Yes. You can
deeper and faster, I guess is what I'm getting at. You can sit there and count down any bait, but this one will get down there pretty quick.
It will.
But yeah, so starting October 15th, while supplies last, anybody that makes a purchase of $50 or more will receive a free crankbait from Cornerstone. And we have the baits we just showed you that's coming in the October box. We have a super special surprise coming up for you guys in November too.
Oh yeah.
First time we've ever done it.
Yep.
First time.
Scary.
It's scary.
It's scary.
We're excuse the pun, but we're getting out of the box.
Yep.
And we want you guys we want you guys to get out of the box with us.
Come to Alabama with us.
All right, Josh. I think we've said enough.
Very true. Thank you all.
Hell yeah.
And
so 2 weeks, we'll see you guys right here. Same time.
Same bad channel.
Later, everybody.
See ya.